everyone. Welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today's guest is the co-owner of Hobie Surf Shops, which was originally created in the 50s as the first surf shop in Southern California. Hobie has currently 4 locations in Orange County, including Dana Point, San Clemente, Laguna Beach, and most recently, San Juan Capistrano. Thank you so much for being here today, Jake Schwaner.
Thanks so much for having me here. It's a real privilege, and I appreciate it.
Of course. And it's so fun to get to talk with you because I didn't realize the history, like how interesting it is of Hobie until I started researching you. And then I went to the new location at River Street Marketplace and it was so busy, so much fun. So I'm so excited to talk with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Yeah, it's been that San Juan location is beautiful. It's been a great addition for our company, and it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Well, to start at the beginning, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Tustin, California, up in the orange groves, avocado orchards of Tustin. And that's small little agricultural town just 16 miles from where Hobie was raised and started his business, and where my wife was born and raised. And that's where I was raised, right there.
Wow. And can you kind of take me back to what surf culture was like back then?
Well, for me, again, it's we started going to the beach. My dad started taking us to the beach when we were really super little kids, 3, 4, 5 years old, down to Salt Creek and back to Young's Beach Camp which is Salt Creek today. And then you drive down through Young's Beach Camp. They'd stick the bamboo pole out, put $1 on the clothespin, you'd get in. So that's where the beach started for me. And we started creating our own skimboards and
wow.
Exactly. And then from there, fast forward into high school, and when I started getting more into the surf culture, and a buddy of mine's dad was in the service, and this was in the late 60s. So they started taking us down to church and trestles, and we were camping out there. And that's where I first started to learn how to surf and kneeboard. And so we'd go down there and we'd spend a week and camp and surf. And back then, that was the late 60s, early 70s, and that's when Vietnam was going on, and that's when Nixon had his Western White House there. So to get down to lowers, I mean, the military is always patrolling the beach. So for the people who couldn't get in, they were always on the beach trying to get them out. But fortunately, my buddy's dad was in the service, so we could camp there and we could go surf there. And so it was some pretty turbulent times back then. And I mean, again, we're only in high school. We're, 9th, 10th grade kids. And, this is what Vietnam's all about. It was pretty interesting. So it was a little rebellious too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as I mentioned, I didn't realize how much Hobie Alter was such a pivotal figure in Southern California history. So did his legacy have any influence on you when you were a kid, or did you know about him?
Honestly, I didn't, because when we were doing all that, and then at that point, like I mentioned before, I started getting really into backpacking and skiing. So at that point, my mind started shifting off into the mountains. So we'd go to the mountains all the time. And, Hobie didn't really play a pivotal role because I really didn't know too much about him. At that point, my life was, do some junior college, let's get through college and move to the mountains. And that's where I went.
Wow.
Yeah. So he did not play a big part of my role. Who really played the big part of my role was Dick Metz, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah. Well, can you share a bit about Hobie Alter's vision and his innovations that kind of shaped the surf industry? Like why he was an important person, I guess.
Yeah, well, Hobie, again, I mean, the story of Hobie goes back to 1950, and that's when, the story basically is living on Gaviota Street in Laguna Beach, and he was shaping balsa boards in his, excuse me, I'm shaking a little bit because I'm on my knees. Holding it in my hand. But, he started shaping balsa boards in his garage. And his dad started getting really sick of him building all these boards and picking up all the shavings in the garage. So that's when his dad bought him a lot for $1,500 down in Dana Point. And then fast forward to 1954, that's when he moved down there and opened up the first surf shop in California. And then from there, it's the rest is kind of history. There's so much history about it. It's like it would take a long time to get into that. But it all started from there. And that's, he met Grubby Clark, and that's when foam came into play. And that's when it just started taking off. And Hobie's, like I said, this is our 70th year anniversary this year. So
wow,
we're celebrating
congratulations.
some good times here with Hobie and the retail shops.
Yeah. Well, how did you first come to work with Hobie?
Well, I came to work with Hobie. I was living out, and after college, I moved out to Aspen, Colorado, and got into the ski industry. And we started a ski manufacturing company, and we were hand building skis out in Aspen. And so I lived there for 10 years. And my father-in-law at the time was a friend of Dick Metz, because Dick Metz was really the retail part of this whole thing, and he was a bigger influence on me than Hobie, because he was the one that I first met him in 1982 at a trade show. And because my father-in-law told him to come by and see me, at that point, that's when I met him, and we'd stayed in touch. And then fast forward to about 1986, there was an opportunity that it was coming up over in Hawaii, because we had 6 stores in Hawaii and 7 in California at the time. And they needed someone to do marketing and advertising for them in Hawaii. And I'd studied that in college, and I knew it, and I knew the beach industry, and I knew the ski industry. And so I went over to Hawaii, and I started in Maui. The 6 stores over there. I started, because they need someone to go to the concierge, work the hotels, and one thing led to another. I got in from there. Then they wanted me to manage the stores. Then they wanted me to be a buyer, and from there it just rolled. So I started in Maui in 1987, and pretty much the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, I read that you were with Hobie for 7 years, and then you left for a period, and then came back when Mark Christie bought the company in 1986.
Yep.
So what brought you back to Hobie after that break?
Well, at that point, I had to leave because the company went through a little bankruptcy, because it sold it to some people didn't understand how to run surf shops. And long story short, they took it into a zone that I saw coming, and then I left for 7 years. And then I went down and worked with Adventure 16 and for 7 years, and then fast forward even again, they drove it into the ground. And then Mark in 96 started getting involved in it. And at that time, Mark was into real estate, and our other partner, Joe Gelber, at the time was an attorney, and they didn't know anything about, Hobies and how to run it. And at that point, no one knew who was going to take Hobies over. So Hobie called Mark Christie one night and was talking to Mark and goes, "Hey, I found somebody who I think should run the Hobie stores and buy the Hobie stores." And Mark goes, "Who?" Hobie goes, "You." And Mark goes, "I know nothing about retail, Hobie." But he goes, "You know the history, you know the culture, and just find somebody who knows it, and then let it run from there." So that's kind of where I came into play.
Oh, what an amazing, how flattering that must have felt.
Yeah. It was. So I came up to the interview, and we had, there was a few people in line to do it, but fortunately I had ski industry background and surf background also. And Dick Metz was a skier, and so was Hobie. So they're both passionate about skiing. So, and at that time we were renting skis out of our Dana Point store. So that gave me the feather in the cap, and so they picked me, and off I went, and now the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, I learned that the store in Dana Point is just 100 yards from where the original Hobie Surf Shop, Hobie Surf Shop stood in 1954. Can you talk about the significance of that location and what it represents for Hobie's legacy?
Yeah, that store came up actually during the recession, and it was a store called Real Time at the time, and we were across the street. And we wanted to start, buying the real estate and having in our own business. So this building came up. We bought the building. This was during the recession too, back in 90, or not 90, but 2008 and 9. So we took that shop and built it and put a shaping bay in it too. That was the old post office back in the 40s. So we put a shaping bay in that store. So now when you walk in the store and into the hard goods area, you can see Gary Larson, who's our main shaper. He's shaping. So it really takes it back to what the original store was, where Hobie shaped and sold boards right out of the store. And that's what we're still doing today. Gary's still shaping the boards there. It's almost like farm to market, where the boards go right from shaping to glassing back to the retail.
So cool. Well, speaking of 2009, I read an article from that time about the Laguna Beach store's green room.
Yep.
Can you talk a bit about what this was and how you came up with the idea?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, the green room came up because I've been partners and friends with Patagonia for a long time. And when I was living in the mountains, that's when I first met everyone there. And I started being a Patagonia guy for forever. And I started studying their business, their culture, and what they do, and their ethos and their social standards towards environmentalism. And so we were the first retailer to bring the Patagonia surf into the shops. So we've been with Patagonia now for 7 years. And, everyone knows their sustainability story. And then at that point, a lot of the other manufacturers are starting to understand what environmental awareness was and social responsibility. So they started putting more focus on organic cottons and things like that, and started putting them into their products. So that's when I got the idea, because both Mark and I are kind of ex-hippies, and we kind of love that world of
Yeah.
sustainability, and I've always believed in those type of things. And so that's when I got the idea. So let's create a store that has products with a purpose, and that's kind of where it all started. In the industry at the time, there was a lot of energy doing it. Quicksilver, Billabong, Element, they were all getting into it. So the timing was perfect, and we were the first ones on to do it, and it was really good. It was good for the time. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we kept riding the wave. And at that point, companies like Patagonia kept doing it. And a lot of our manufacturers in our business started pulling away from organic cotton sustainability because of the cost. So, but, we continued doing what we do as much as we can.
Yeah. And your stores have received the certification as a green business by California Green Business Program.
Mm-hmm.
So are all the stores qualified for that?
Well, right now they are. But the one that got it was Laguna Beach. But all of our stores, when we built our stores, because we buy the real estate, we build the stores, and all of our stores are built with LED lighting, solo tubes, drought tolerant landscape, everything we can, recycled paper. We, no plastic cups in there, water bottles only. And, we do as much as we can to make our stores sustainable. And that's what we've done. So in Laguna, all of our paper, all of the copy paper, all the cups, everything we use has to have a certain amount of biodegradable materials in it to get to that point. So yeah, it's company wide.
Wow. Why don't you think other companies implement initiatives like this?
Well, I guess my only thought would be is that it doesn't mean that much to them, and the cost. It might cost a little bit more to do these things, but for us, it's worth it because we believe in those ethos. That's just what we do. We live by them. We always have.
And I love that you also offer your employees voluntear days. Yes. How did that come about, and what impact has it had on the community?
That came about because we started a brand called Fragile Ocean years and years and years ago. And my son and I, he was the graphic designer, and with that we became members of 1% for the Planet. And with 1% through the Planet with Fragile Ocean, we've partnered with the Ocean Institute in Dana Point, Pacific Marine Mammal in Laguna, and the Ecology Center in San Juan Capistrano. So those are our three beneficiaries. They're all nonprofits. And so what we do is we offer our employees, 3 days a year to go volunteer. We'll pay you for it. And, any one of these or any other nonprofit that kind of fits within the world that we deal with, go work with them and we'll pay you for it.
That is so cool. So more companies should do that. I love that. Yeah. Well, the San Juan Capistrano store was opened in collaboration with Vissla and Florence. So can you talk a bit about this partnership?
Yes, this was during the times when our industry, as a lot of people know, has been going through a lot of change. A lot of the big brands, I'm sure you've heard, right? Where they've all kind of sold out into the corporate America, and big licensing companies now have bought the brands. So the products started becoming a little bit diluted. And when you start finding products in Costco and Mervyn's and Ross and all these different places, the party's over. And for us, we're specialty retailers, and we stick by our swords by being specialty retailers, because that's what we need to do. If we need to find products that are, with a purpose, that are special, that are hard to find. And then at that time, it was our like I said, our industry was kind of changing. And there's a lot of new young brands coming up right now too, which is really good. And with Florence and Vissla, we started talking because their ethos are like ours. They both follow sustainability issues, social awareness, and they build products with organic cottons. And so it just seemed like a natural thing. They weren't over distributed. They keep it tight. They don't open up the big boxes. So we said, okay, well, let's partner in the San Juan store and do something completely out of box and different than most people are doing. So that's what we're doing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, how has Hobie's mission changed over the years, and what do you envision for the brand's future?
Yeah. The mission, if you really look deep into this thing, it hasn't changed that much because Hobie always stood for innovation, quality, service, and community. That's how he built his brand all the way going back to 1954. That was him. And that's what we've done today. We've been entrenched in the community. We still continue to innovate. Service is the key in everything you do, and quality products and products with a purpose. So our mission is pretty much stayed pretty core to those values. And obviously, you got to upgrade them in today's world and where we're at. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. Well, is there anything that listeners can look forward to from Hobie in 2025? Whether it's like events at the new store or anything like that?
Yeah, we have a lot of events planned for this year. I mean, we're going to, because Florence is one of our partners and they've worked with us for the past few years, we bring in John quite a bit into our stores. And
Oh,
so
cool.
he and his brother Nate have teamed up also. So we'll have events with John and his brother, and Patagonia will probably have 2 events with them. Vista will be doing some art shows and real cool events. So, and we've been doing events forever in our stores and in Patagonia, even Quicksilver. Quicksilver used to do the greatest events with us, and they'd bring in their athletes, and it was a really good community thing. So we're going to continue to work with them we're doing an event with Griffin Colapinto coming up. So,
No way.
So
Very cool.
we do a lot of community events.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was very short and sweet. And I have 3 final questions for you that we call the Thoughtful 3.
Okay.
So first, what characteristics do you feel helped you succeed in your career?
Well, I think the most important thing, I know I found a passion. I knew early on in life, my dad used to always say that to me too, is that I always wanted to make my living out of a passion. And at the time, I wanted to manage ski resorts and live at the mountains and do that. And I was on the path to do that, but things changed. But I got involved in the surf business, which is an outdoor business. And I was always passionate about the ocean, and I still am. So I was real fortunate to have a passion that I loved. I've stayed humble. I worked hard, and I've kept my eye on the prize.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is a routine that you've implemented in your life that you feel others should adopt in their day-to-day lives as well, whether it be sustainability or anything?
Yeah, well, I guess, for me personally, if that's what you're asking me, is that I wake up every day with a positive attitude. I always look for the good things in life. I know I want to go to work and work hard, and I want to keep a positive attitude and look for the goodness in everybody and everything I do.
Definitely. And then lastly, what have you learned in terms of how to navigate challenges?
Personally or through business?
Business.
Okay, through business. So if there's challenges in business, that's pretty simple. What we do is we first assess what the challenges are. We analyze them. We look at them because we've been through them. We've been through recessions. We've been through pandemics. And so then what we do is we gather our team, our core team, because we do have a core team. So at that point, then we sit down with our core team and quite simply just figure it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's taking the time to really look at something and analyze it. Well, I love that.
You got to sit down, analyze, and figure it out the old-fashioned way. Just figure it out, but look at it all first too and assess it.
Yeah, it's nice that you guys have like the track record of being able to overcome harder challenges like recessions and pandemics and things like that, and know you can move forward. Yeah, that's nice.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was so great getting to talk with you. I loved learning about Hobie, and I hope to talk with you again soon.
Okay, well, thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
You too.